All right, so today we talked about identifying the difference between independent and dependent variables, and then how to put those together and write them in an equation. So, a couple definitions before we begin, just to remind you. An independent variable in an equation may have its value freely chosen, regardless of the values of any other variable. So this is the variable that doesn't depend on anything else. It's the one that we change. It's the one that you can kind of do whatever with, and then there's no repercussions. Okay. The dependent variable, on the other hand, is a variable whose value depends on the value of the independent variable. So whatever happens with the independent variable directly affects your dependent variable. Now, we also learned that x is always your independent, and then y is the dependent. So it's like you change x, and whatever you do to x, it equals y. Okay, so a couple of examples we talked about in class today were input is your independent, where dependent is your output. Okay, independent, the amount of time you study directly affects your test score. So your test score depends on the amount of time that you study. We said time spent at work is the independent, where the money that you make is your dependent. So the money that you make depends on how much time you spend at work. The amount of game time that you get can affect the number of points that you score in a game. So the number of points you score is directly dependent on how long that you're in the game. Down here at the bottom it's kind of cut off, but we have age and height. Okay, your age directly impacts how tall you are. Okay, when you're a little teeny tiny baby, you're very short, and then the older you get, the more you grow. So your height depends on the age that you are. Okay, we know that our independent variable, a dependent variable directly depends on that of the independent variable. All right, so your homework is broken down into, each question is broken down into 3 questions. You have A, where you pick the independent and the dependent variable, B, where you figure out what the math operation is, and then C, where you actually put those together and write the equation. So we're going to look at question 1A, 1B, and 1C, and you can kind of follow that process to help you with questions 2 through the rest. Okay, so number 1 says Sam coaches basketball clinics and he charges $14 per player. T stands for the total amount of money that he makes, and P stands for the number of players that sign up. Identify the independent and the dependent variable. So they give us 2 variables here. Okay, the first one, it says T, and that stands for the total amount of money he makes. And then they give us P, and it stands for the players that sign up. So we have to figure out which one is independent and which one is dependent. So as I'm reading this story, I can ask myself, which one depends on the other one? And then that's an easy way to identify our dependent variable. Okay, so the total amount of money he makes depends on the amount of people that signed up. So that makes the total amount he makes the dependent variable, or the Y, and the amount of players that sign up his independent variable. Okay, if one player signs up, he's going to make a lot less money than, say, if like 5 people signed up. So the amount of money he makes directly depends on how many people sign up. So let's look at question 1B. 1B says, identify the math operation. Okay, now this is back to like what we did yesterday, where we pick out those words that tell us what math operation that this equation is going to have. So it says Sam coaches basketball clinics and charges $14 per player. And we have talked and talked and talked. When we see the word per and it's talking about money, we're saying that for every single player, he's going to charge $14. Okay, so it's like a for every. And we know that we're going to be multiplying every player that signs up by that $14 that he charges. So multiplication is going to be our math operation for this equation. Now, last part says identify the equation. So we go back and pick out the pieces that we know. We know he's charging $14 per player, where P stands for the players that sign up, and also that T stands for the total amount of money that he's going to make. So as we write our equation, we know that T is our dependent variable, so it's going to be T equals something. The total amount of money he makes equals the $14 times the people that show up. So $14 times each person that signs up says the total amount of money he makes equals $14 times the players that sign up. Okay, so that's our equation. Now, use these steps in the handout that I gave you in class today to finish off the rest of the homework problems.